Always do that too hard.
One day.
Good morning. I'd like to begin the November Somerville Tree Protection Board meeting, and we'll start with approval of last month's minutes. Are there any questions, discussions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. The first order of business is 109 Brutus Lane. Is there a representative for Brutus Lane? Come on up if you'd like to speak.
For 14 years, I've tried to have these trees removed from my property. As you know, I feel like they're a danger in a storm but also the fact that I have a neighbor already who's had roots come up through her bedroom from an oak tree. Even if I can have an arborist come out and cut the roots, it has to be done every 10 to 12 years. They tell me it's $500. I also have to have these trees trimmed to keep squirrels off the roof because they've already caused a leak in the roof in the past. And all these things cost money for a retired person. It's cheaper to remove the trees, and it's the only lasting solution to my problem. So therefore, I think you should grant me permission, regardless of us being Flower Town in the Pines, to remove these 5 trees. There's plenty of trees behind them. I don't hate trees. I just am trying to preserve the integrity of my property. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thoughts?
Well, we all look carefully and I truly don't see any structural reasons at all to remove those trees. I do see the roots from the pine tree on the, if you have your back to the house, the one on the far left, beginning to encroach on the patio. They are pretty closely gathered together. But again, I see no structural reasons to remove them. And maintenance of trees is just something that you need to take on. However, since they're so crowded together, I can see granting approval to remove the 2 pine trees, which would include the one has roots that are heading towards the patio, but not the oaks, and once those 2 oaks are removed, then the canopies of, once the 2 pines are removed, then the canopies of the oaks might grow and spread out. So I can see approving the removal of the 2 pines, but not the oaks.
Any other thoughts?
I would agree with that, but I wanted her to know that when you have a bunch of trees like this, the roots combine and strengthen each other, holding together. And that's a good thing, rather than having a single tree out by itself. When you have a group like this, they really bond, and it's a powerful thing to have. But I would agree with you on the removal of those 2 only.
Yeah, I agree with that. The pines, I think there's more of a tendency or likelihood of dropping branches and things like that. The oaks, you typically don't have that issue. And I think with the pines being removed and the oaks allowed to stay, I think that would be a good compromise on that.
You mentioned you're worried about storms. Well, again, as was just mentioned, the pine trees are the ones most likely, particularly these trees, where they sit in relation to the other trees around them. They're the ones that would be most subject to snap off, blow down in a storm, not those other oaks. They're pretty solid citizens and locked in the ground. So I tend to agree also with, it would enhance the mini stand, if you will, to remove both the pine trees and leave the remaining oaks. Any more thoughts?
Want a motion? Yeah, I move to approve the removal of the 2 pine trees and to deny removal of the 3 remaining oaks.
I second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. So you can remove the. Yes, the offer is clear. Next item is 208 Hardy Avenue. Good morning.
Good morning. I would like to remove the elm tree in my front yard. I know you guys came out to see it and should have never been planted in that position so close to the house. And over the years, it's leaning and the compensation roots are growing and they're right next to the gas lines to my house. And I'm very concerned about that. And I would really like to take it down.
You've been noticing it leaning more and more as time
It's-
goes on.
Yes, every year it seems to be leaning more and more, and there's
Mhm.
more roots going towards my house. And in that same flower bed, there's an electrical box, there's a box for the sprinkler system, and also a cable.
Right.
No, they planted the tree on top of everything.
Yeah,
We saw that.
they just planted the tree, and the HOA probably gave them approval at that time, or maybe there was no approval needed. But it's just getting more leaning over. It may hit my car, the lines. My house is on a slab, and I don't want it
Right.
to cause any problems to the house. Unfortunately, my yard is so small, I don't foresee if I could put another tree in that place because I would have the same problem.
No.
And I have all those trees in my back of my house, which I love. You know, we have a lot of deer and a lot of wildlife and birds, you know, there. But I am willing to compensate or plant a tree somewhere else in downtown Somerville. I know there's a lot of construction going on, and I didn't know or do some volunteer work.
Okay.
We appreciate that very much.
Okay. You have any questions for me?
No, I think that's it.
Now, you know, one of the great slogans or hallmarks of good landscaping or good trees is right tree, right site. And that's the wrong tree in the wrong site, in my opinion. It's an aggressive tree. It was planted in a tiny bed in a tiny yard. It certainly is leaning. That's not a phototropic lean. I don't think it's leaning because the ground, I believe, is shifting. And secondly, you know, these parvifolias, these elms are aggressive growers. And it was just planted there with all these underground utilities. It was just bad design.
Yep.
Bad design. And so consequently, I agree that the tree should be removed for lots of reasons.
Any other comment?
I move that we allow removal of the elm at 208 Hardy Avenue.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Uh,
All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have 206 South Gum Street.
Hi, I'm Christopher Louvier, the homeowner there. The pecan tree I'd like to have removed. The arborist or from Southern Roots as well as here, and he's taking pictures of the open cavities in the tree.
We just saw them this morning.
I'm glad you went ahead and got an arborist to see it. 'Cause we couldn't see that from the ground.
Yeah, you could see not very much from the ground, but it was easier when he climbed up in the tree and took pictures of it.
Right. I'm tall, but not that tall.
Well,
It's a shame. It's a magnificent tree.
It is, and when I had the 5 trees removed a couple of years ago that had termite damage, and we had a oak tree, water oak that was hollowed. We didn't remove that one because we wanted to keep it for the yard, but it's repeatedly not just I knew that there was a pecan tree, so I knew that the squirrels would be throwing pecans like missiles at my house, but it deteriorating the roof, but also just the open cavities. I'm more worried about the limb that's coming over the house at this point.
No, that's a potentially ominous threat for sure.
Absolutely. If I remove just that one limb, I think that removes like most of the canopy, which would look really, really funny for the remainder of the tree. I think then it would cause the stress on the tree, and I don't think it would be good long term.
you know, it's an old tree. It's senescing slowly, anyhow, so.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Well, just only that Mr. Rice did a really good inspection and that's what that certainly helped to sway us was the details that he listed in his inspection. We all, I think, suspected that we were gonna have to approve removal, but we're hoping he would not find what he found because it is a gorgeous tree and, you know, and
It's one of the tallest on the whole block. It's
oh, it is,
magnificent.
you know, if it were healthy, it would be adding, Lord, 6-7% to your property value. I mean, it just would. And also you think about the summertime shade, it's giving, which is reducing your utility
Electric
bill.
bill.
But sadly,
I know.
sadly, trees have a finite life as we all do. And I think it's probably time to remove this one.
But there's also an opportunity to replant there as well.
Yeah,
when you do
absolutely.
that. Okay, good.
Any more thoughts, questions, concerns?
No, I move to approve removal of the pecan tree at 206 South Gum.
I second it.
All those in favor of removal of the tree, the pecan, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. An old tree has lived its life and now it has to go. Sad to
Sad.
say that. Thank you.
Make a nice mantle of it.
It would
Yeah.
make, it would-
Got some good wood there.
It's solid inside and all over the beach.
Yeah.
The last item I have is 718 North Hickory.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, first time here in front of the board, but we actually own both 714 and 718. I think you guys went out and saw kind of what the situation is out there. As far as what we as a company want to do, we want to save every tree possible. We think that trees help us sell homes, to be honest, especially good looking ones, healthy ones. The oaks help sell houses, but on this one in particular, I think that there's been a couple different proposals as far as house placement. We've been back and forth with Becca a couple times on, you know, push it further back, move it farther forward, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the main question is in regards to the chestnut tree. And I think in talking, we've talked about diversity of species and how that we're trying to attain diversity of species. There's plenty of pines, there's plenty of oaks, but there aren't that many chestnut trees. And in our opinion, the chestnut tree is really the deterrent to selling the home. If you see what comes off of these trees, it's like it's like a weapon. You know, and when I was a kid, we used to throw green pine cones at each other. If we had these things, we would have been dangerous. But I think this is our proposal. And I think that Becca's proposal was to take the house and move it all the way up to the right-hand building envelope line, and then push it all the way forward. Yeah, in that general vicinity there, which would then have to take down some of the buffer trees between us and the neighbor. And we were trying to limit that because obviously the neighbor's been there a long time. But for us, we felt like there would be a healthy buffer there would be better than no buffer. And so that's why we came up with this, was to eliminate our first proposal was actually to get rid of those 4 pines that are across the back there. And push the house kind of far off the street and kind of have a meandering drive that would lead you to the house. Again, all in the intents of trying to sell a house that is going to be intriguing to a client. So that's where we stand. I don't know. I know you guys went to the site.
And we were there when Nick was in discussion with you on the phone.
Yep.
And it sounded to me as if what has been distilled down is that the removal of a pine and a water oak on the right-hand side of the property as you face it.
Yep.
Are the 2 trees, major trees that are going to be removed. Is
According to what their plan was.
Front right corner, we're willing to allow the removal of those in order to move the house out of the protection area of the trees on the left, the Chinese chestnut, to keep that. And what I had proposed, the UDO allows up to a certain extent for the front porch to encroach within the front setback, that front dashed line that you can see on the site plan there. But I understand, we understand maybe not wanting to have the house that close to the front property line. So what Nick and I had discussed and our kind of final balls in your court back to them, was that we'd like the house pulled all the way over to the side setback and as far front as the front setback allows without encroaching. So that was our, to them, we said we can approve this at staff level. So that's why they're here, is they're appealing that request. So they can put the house where they would like.
Okay,
That's right.
what is the result of the tree removal for your solution that's now being appealed? How many trees?
It would be those front two
Yes.
trees. I mean, they're also going to have to remove trees that we've identified ones that are in poor health. And anything else that's in the building footprint, but it does allow us to maintain those pines that are in the middle of the yard, and then the Chinese chestnut, while it's still encroaching in some of the protection areas. And I think the one I gave you, with the lot next door showing as well, because there are some protection areas that overlap.
Yeah.
From the neighboring lots.
Oh, yeah, we saw that.
So, that the location all the way to the right setback, and front setback would allow it to be the most out of any other tree
Mhm.
protection area.
Okay, so now your counter proposal is,
What you see up on the screen.
It's slightly different.
It's just slightly different. I would say it's probably maybe 15 feet further back and a couple feet to the left of
Right,
where
okay.
the original her proposal was. And again, that's just to maintain the buffer, but and then also our plan would facilitate the removal of the chestnut tree, which I think was the main sticking point due to the diversity of species that we talked about. But for us, again, we're in the business of selling homes. We think that the chestnut's actually a deterrent, but
it's a what?
a deterrent to selling the home.
Well, if you had young children running around and if you had pets running around, that wouldn't be a good match. So the furthest most in X, if you're looking from the street, that's the chestnut tree.
Yeah, the one, as you're looking at it, would be
the
back
left.
left corner of the home.
What's the one below it, closer to the street?
I
Okay,
believe,
how they
I
read
think
it?
there's some debts.
Yeah, I think it's a cedar.
there's a couple dead cedars on
On
them.
the site plan is the Chinese chestnut.
Yes, I realize that. And so the one on the right, is that a significant tree?
It's a 20-inch, the one on the right,
Yes,
it's gum tree.
Huh?
A gum tree,
And then how big is it?
18.
18 inches.
The Chinese chestnut just has bigger gums.
Yes.
The gum, is it in good shape or what kind of shape is it in? And it-
Yeah, I mean, it's decent, I guess.
You know,
Kind of thin.
when we were on site and looking at that, I'm a major proponent of good buffers between neighbors.
Sure.
I mean, I think that's a wonderful, that's what we should do. And as I looked at those two trees in the front, I didn't see them contributing that much to a buffer. I mean, I really and truly didn't, not as a visual buffer or a sound buffer. They're trees and want to protect them. And then similarly, or part of the same issue, I was just at a conference last week and one of the presenters was presenting on chestnut trees. And you, as you may or may not be aware, the American chestnut is kaput in this country. You know, they were killed by a virus that was brought over from Asia. And that's why the Chinese chestnuts survive, because they are inoculated against it naturally. And they are, and this particular presenter was saying, you know, like the native chestnut, they have these thorns on the seeds, and they can be an issue if you're not careful, but they are such a welcome and positive new addition to the American landscape that this presenter, I mean, other people may disagree, but this presenter really thought we should protect them, and I concur. I mean, I just think in time, here again, you're selling this property with good marketing to have a nut tree like that should add to that property value. And if it grows, if someone buys it and it grows, it will definitely add to that property value. And if the purchaser has young children and in the future, those young children refuse to wear their shoes and get stuck or they throw them, then this board, I'm sure, would entertain removal at that time. But for me, I'm in favor of accepting staff's proposal. Yeah. Bottom line.
What was the biggest reason you wish to move that back from the staff proposal?
Well, it's really from a house presentation point of
Okay.
view. I mean, when you slide the house all the way up to the street and you have no front yard, although the backyard in this house is going to be massive.
Yeah.
It's also highly treed. And so there's not a whole lot of area. I mean, obviously Somerville is a family area. Most of the homes that we sell are gear based around, young families, growing families, et cetera. And so I think it's important to have the house pushed back. If you saw the site plan that we have next door, the house is pushed as far back as we possibly can. We've done a lot of selective clearing. A lot of thought goes behind house positioning as it relates to sales. So this one, scooting it all the way forward, it's just going to be a deterrent for us as far as marketability being that close to the street. And again, you were talking common amount, no buffer. When we go in and start trying to take these trees out, if we're not selectively cutting them, if we're not going in with a chainsaw and just most of the time we're going to go in there with a loader and start pulling these things out, we're going to compromise the roots of the other trees that are in that area that will also contribute to the buffer. So that's why we wanted to keep as many as we possibly could in that area.
Well,
Honestly, this isn't even what we really want to do. What we really wanted to do was push it all the way back where you can see the pine.
And get rid of those
live oak
wonderful
there.
pines.
They're back in the back and take out two of the pines in the middle, put the driveway right down the middle and drop the house in the back.
Right.
But
Those are beautiful pine trees, huh?
they are big.
It's really nice.
Mhm. Worth a fortune.
other thoughts?
I know I normally don't disagree with the colleagues up here on this board, but I think if I was looking at it with a young family, whatever, it'd be tough for me to look at purchasing the house because of the fruit from the chestnut. And, I don't really have a problem with the way it's laid out for you, but that's just my opinion.
Sure.
And, I would be okay with it, but chestnut is a valuable tree in this area, and we do need that diversity also, and understand the other's opinion on that. But I think in this case, I could go with what you're presenting here, saving those trees on the right side.
We've had people that wanted to have a gum tree removed because of the gum balls that would fall.
Of course.
And I know of someone that paid a grandchild a penny a piece to pick them up. The kid made like $10.
Yeah, good tact.
But maybe these could be picked up as well. I know it's not fun to pick up
No, they're great.
because I picked up one
Yeah.
and it spoke to me.
To be honest, I had no idea. And I went in there, I just reached down and went to go grab one. And I had no idea how sharp those things are. I got it in all my fingers. So
And they don't fall throughout the year.
Right.
It's just like pecans, they fall at a certain time of year and you clean them up and you're good for 10 months. So but
Yeah, I want to clean them up. Just pick them up with care. Maybe picking those up would bring a better price than a penny a piece for the gumballs.
at least.
Yeah.
This is a difficult one. I can see both sides.
Sure.
I wonder if the likelihood of the chestnut tree down the road is gonna be more of a liability than a plus. Not in terms of its value in a stand of trees, but the practical value of its being a nuisance for a homeowner.
And really, it's a location thing. If that chestnut tree was back left corner of this house or back center, just anywhere past the pines.
The problem is the
Be
lot,
fine.
like most lots, it's too narrow.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't seem to be anything we can do about that. But that is a shame.
So there is no room on the plot to locate a chestnut to purchase one and put it further back where it would be kind of out of the way to,
Not opposed to any of that. We could do that for sure.
I don't know how available they are in the nursery trade. And I know you brought something.
I'm sure we can find.
Maybe one in there, but you may be hard pressed.
Yeah.
to Find out. Because they're not, what's the botanical, Nick? You know,
Oh, man.
Chestnut?
Yeah.
of the Chinese. Anyway, I think
What do you?
you might find one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
See if it encroaches within.
I would have been super impressed if you had rattled that off, to be honest.
Let me see.
I'm not, yeah. It's 10. Yeah, I think the tree protection areas are shown, I think.
They are.
So.
So with this still, it's, it's showing their proposed location.
Right.
So,
Which encroachment are you worried about?
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it really would be, these two smaller trees, but, pulling it over here.
By a tad,
By
like
a
splitting
tad,
difference, yeah.
Yeah, so if y'all are really not, you're considering allowing the removal of that, then
That would, okay, then that would be relevant.
then
right?
yeah, there aren't any other trees that, we'd really be concerned about, I guess. Well, the sycamore here, it's not fully shown, but it still wouldn't encroach. See how the curve here is
Right,
shown
right.
on there, but it still wouldn't encroach, it'd be close.
What we're discussing is splitting the difference between its offset from the right-hand side.
Well, I just wanted to clarify if y'all just approved the removal of this, if this location as it's shown, it doesn't encroach into any other tree protection area for
Oh,
either
okay.
lot. So there really wouldn't be an issue.
The
There.
only
Yeah, the
difference-
offset from the right, if we only went half if we, from her,
No, I don't think we would need to move it at all. if
from
they-
ours.
From this,
Yeah.
yeah, I have the same one. I just taped the other.
Oh, I got
So you could see the.
I got you.
No, we were not on the same page.
Yes, different wavelengths.
Got it.
That was my thought, that
No.
was intervening, into the discussion. But it would be, I don't know whether that would be enough to save the chestnut anyhow.
Right, but I just wanted to make sure that if y'all were going to move to approve it, that
It didn't
this
encroach
specific, there wasn't an issue with the location otherwise.
Of
and there's not.
other tree protection. Right? There isn't, and it's clean. So. I tend to lean on the design and practical side of this thing, much as I don't like it. So. I don't know how much more we can discuss it. Any more?
Yeah, my thoughts have not changed. That if I understand from a sales perspective, removing the chestnut tree. Certainly that's that's a no-brainer. I understand that. But from an aesthetic perspective, from an environmental perspective, from a long-term value to the community perspective, I just think it would be shameful to remove that tree. And I just do. When it's easy enough to shift the structure a little bit and have a huge backyard. I mean, I live on Main Street. I've got a small front yard as well and a huge backyard, and I've always looked at it as a plus, but I know people are different, and I don't understand marketing, and I'll be the first to admit, but I do understand landscape architecture a little bit, and I understand aesthetics, and I just know what a value to that property that tree could be. So I'm going to remain unchanged, Mr. Chairman.
Just one other question. The size of the tree, what is it, Nick? How big is this tree? I mean, would it be realistic to think that you could even take a tree spade, dig it up, put it somewhere else in the yard?
It's 24 inches. It's way too big to.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Massive.
Well, I have moved 60-foot tall cedars, so I have, but
Yeah.
and they live.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't with the nut tree. I don't know. I'd recommend it.
Considering its support, if you will, from the adjacent lots, tree protection zone, it's free on its backside, the chestnut, as I recall. The circles don't show that, but I don't know what's happening between the large circle for the oak, I guess it is.
Yeah, that big live oak.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right on the property line, almost dead on it.
Right, and then as you go toward the street, there's a vacant area, and then you have two more protection zones.
Yeah, the chestnut's the only one that kind of occupies that. I think there's some scrub stuff in there, but that's the
Right.
only significant tree that occupies that space.
This may be just trying to find another way just for the sake of it. But if the house were moved,
We're gonna get into it. If we keep the chestnut tree, even if we move it, we're still gonna encroach in the ring. As it being a 24-inch tree, you got a
Right.
24-foot ring.
if it were to move some distance more toward the street, that would reduce the level of encroachment, would it not? On the,
We requested that they, taking into consideration their concern about, the streetscape and how close the house being to the street and encroaching into the front setback. We asked for the house to be moved all the way to the right setback, which is that dashed line,
right,
which would pull it. It'd still be within the encroachment area, but it would be.
I realize that, but if, maybe we're trying to have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
To move the house in its current offset position, but move it toward the street. Not all the way, a compromise.
Well, sure, but then you're gonna be in two different zones because you're gonna be in the encroachment ring for the chestnut, but then you're also gonna get into the live oak that's toward the street there. So you've got the one that's toward the street. I think it's a 26. Is it a 26? 27. It's there. So now you're double. So you're in both tree rings.
Isn't there a great big pine there?
There is.
There's a pine there too. Mhm.
With this
It's a
current
tough one.
location, how, in your proposed location, I can't figure it out on here, but, because the print's too small, but in your proposed location, how much do you encroach on the root zone of the
Chestnut.
chestnut?
Pretty much all of it.
Okay, and how about under this one, Mr. Chairman, how much do we propose? If you slide the house forward and to the right is discuss how much
I don't know. It's probably 8 feet, maybe
you encroach into the zone 8 feet.
about it.
About
I
Even
think,
with the staff recommendation,
with the staff. Yeah.
8 feet still.
You see, I mean, you can almost see it, but due to, you see that the X for the chestnut is kind of, maybe call it 6 or 7 feet back from the back left corner of the house. The
Right.
darker line is the actual outside of the home. And then that lighter solid line that's behind there off the back left corner, that's a porch. And so, you can see that even if you were to slide it half the distance of that, if you were to get it all the way across the line, I think you said what, we can go 5 feet over?
Yes, the front porch can encroach up to 5 feet within the front setback. The side setback can't encroach, I mean, the eaves can, but the footprint of the house can't. So in our minds, or staff's minds, moving it to the right and not moving it as far forward as that, but just right up to that dashed line was the best solution that we could come up with. And then we did, like I said earlier, we did say that we'd be okay with losing those two streets up front to save the.
Nick, do you agree, do you concur that even with staff's proposal for moving the tree to the right and pulling it forward, that it still encroaches 8 feet into the root zone of that chestnut?
I don't know the exact how.
Yeah, but roughly.
I believe it's less.
So what part of the house would be encroaching on the tree? I mean, was it gonna be the back corner of the house or that porch area?
It'd be the porch area.
Is that not gonna be on piers or anything like that, or is it
I think that's just the paved.
It's a patio.
it's a
Just a
patio?
slab.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I don't think it has covering,
No.
so patio, not porch.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you,
But
well, I'm trying to think my way through this. If I would have absolutely no problem whatsoever encroaching into 1/3 of the root zone of a healthy live oak. Just, wouldn't have a
Mhm.
problem. But a nut tree is just, I just don't know how it's gonna respond. And I hate saying that because I don't want to lose that chestnut, but
Once we start the grading process, we have to have the 6 and 10 away from there. So you're gonna have some, you're gonna have some sprawl of your grading away from your house to facilitate water drainage. So,
yeah, how it is do you have a site plan for how much the soil has to be raised there?
no, we do that after, we do that when we start grading the lot. Right now, the elevation of the actual pad of the lot is about equal to the curb line of that road. And we'll probably leave it in that general vicinity. We probably won't mess much with the actual grade, but then we're doing a raised stem foundation wall. So
Raised what?
a foundation wall. So it'll be, we're gonna be 24 inches off of the ground there. But the footing itself will pretty much be at grade. We'll have to bring in about 6 to 8 inches of soil all the way around the house. Not much.
6 to 8 inches. I thought it was more than that, which I sometimes don't.
The 18-inch requirement is from the grade of the street, I believe.
Is it the center or the edge?
Engineering question.
Because that would change everything if we had to put 18 inches of soil in there.
Yeah, because you got the crown of the road, so it does make a difference, if it's the center of the road or the edge of the road. I think it's the edge, but I don't. Sure.
I would, if that's the case in the crown with that, I would hope it would be the edge and not the crown, not the top. But that would change everything if a large amount of soil had to be pulled in and pushed over the roof.
In order to facilitate, stormwater.
We see this in a lot of other places, and it's a real clashing of forces. One truly counterproductive to the other. And for good reason, but not all reasons. I don't know whether it's worth getting a better handle on that before we decide. Staff?
You, engineering has only sent their comments for 7.
Next door, yeah. We've been stuck on this one.
While we're waiting on that, I wanted to comment about the barriers that are put around trees to protect the root system.
Yes, ma'am.
Some people, I'm not throwing stones at you, I'm just saying some have not had adequate barriers. And then the roots are damaged and they place equipment or building supplies in areas where they should not be. And I've seen some of the fencing that was actually touching the tree, which is
Kind of pointless at that.
yes. So I want to mention that it is important
Understood.
to have an adequate, proper barrier around a tree that you want to save.
Sure.
And
Yeah, it's critical, honestly.
yes, I think it's very important.
Yeah, you compact all the dirt around and you're gonna kill the tree anyway. It's not gonna happen right now, but it'll
It
happen
will, and
5
then they'll,
years from now. So,
Elevation of the house pad must be 18 inches higher than the back of the curve of.
it is the
curve of
edge.
the
It is the edge. That's just, it's an uncurbed road, so it'll
Okay.
be the edge of the pavement there.
But do we know how much that will result being?
You're gonna, approximately 8 or 9 inches probably of dirt before the footing. And then, so your footing will go at that elevation and then your dirt around that is another 6 to 8 inches on top of that. So you're about 16 inches above the edge of the road. Is how much dirt's gonna be brought into that lot. to
What
get
do
the
you think
pad
that
to
would
where
end up being around the root collar of the chestnut tree?
based on how close it is, I mean, we're gonna encroach probably about half the distance. So if it's 24, we'll be about 12 feet into the ring at that point with the house plus the dirt.
At the corner, right-hand corner location,
Left hand, but yes, sir.
not the current one that you are proposing,
Correct.
because that's.
No, the current one, it's toast anyway. We're right up it.
That's a lot of soil. That's the trouble with these narrow lots. They have a thing about. Any other thoughts? Think I,
Well, you know, this is killing me,
yeah, I know.
but if the best proposal, is gonna encroach into 1/3 of the root system,
Plus a.
plus you're gonna be adding, 16 inches of soil for drainage. I just don't know that I don't know enough about them, quite frankly, to know if that Chinese chestnut's gonna survive, and I wouldn't want to.
Maybe Nick does?
I doubt it, but I mean, this is a Chinese chestnut is not something that we get a chance to
Right.
deal with.
Right.
So, but my thinking was this, Nick, that if in the best proposal that we have to save the Chinese chestnut, if the best proposal encroaches into the root zone 1/3 of an imported nut tree, and the construction is going to raise the grade of the property of the house in Byron's 16 inches, which would then drain towards more the chestnut tree. Is it going to survive? And what are the chances are that it's going to survive all of that? It pains me to say, but it gets slimmer and slimmer the more I think about it.
Yeah.
Now, I mean,
I'm kind of with you. It's not looking great.
But on the same thought,
But the one thing that I go back to is just that and this is not my hill to die on, but it is just something that keeps kind of popping in my mind. It's just that typically in a situation like this, I prefer to, if that tree is a problem for the future homeowner, it would be approved at a staff level. I'm probably at 85% certain that it would just be approved if the homeowner would apply for it. But with its environmental value and the variable of like me looking at that lot and saying, I would love to have this tree.
yeah, of course. So me too.
But yeah, so the survivability of the situation is not looking great. I will say that part of what I do for my landscape inspection is make sure that there is no excess soil on top of the roof of all the trees. That's not something I allow. For any reason.
Right.
So I regularly go out and say all this soil must be pulled off this roof as far back as you can.
Right, but
That wouldn't be far, is there a chance that?
but it's still gonna be it's still gonna be a
Mhm.
third.
It does occasionally create a fishbowl situation.
Right.
Not great.
No.
So,
And so, and forgive me for thinking out loud here, because that's what I'm doing. I picture all this. So there's a chance of creating a fishbowl. That's certainly going to change the drainage on an imported nut tree that nobody here has any experience with. And so I mean, it's possible that I could say, well, tough luck, developer. This is a great tree and we're going to hang on to this because it's good for all the reasons we've said. But if doing that, if protecting a tree that is now, we're thinking has a 50% chance of survival, and I'm just tossing that number out, and it's going to make it harder for a builder to market a house and have an more attractive addition to the neighborhood. I'm not an architect, so I don't know how to, I'm just guessing at this like a homeowner would. Then is our responsibility as a tree protection board then to understand the nature of trees and say, okay, we gave it our best shot. The developer gave it his best shot, but we're going to approve their design. I mean, I'm as perplexed as I have been with any issue we've faced in a while.
I will sleep well tonight regardless of what you decide.
It ain't you I'm worried about, it's me. No, I hear you.
I went into it understanding it's a difficult.
Yeah.
Weird one, so
Yeah.
I'm perfectly,
Right.
agree with.
I think you add to it what Nick just said too, is that, he feels like 85% chance if a homeowner was standing up here after I sell the house and says, I want to take this down, that it would get approved at it. That's a pretty good, that's 15% off of 100.
Yeah, well,
so
that's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm willing
Fair enough.
to trust the good taste and environmental sensibility of your prospective new owner.
Okay.
What about the possibility, you're gonna wanted to build this on a slab, right?
It's an elevated slab.
Well,
So
okay, raised slab.
It's
okay.
a raised slab. So it sits 24 inches off of the ground. And then it has about 18 inches of exposed foundation wall. So that just so you can get a couple steps up, it makes this, the house presents better.
Well, I was gonna even suggest a crawl space and you wouldn't have to bring in that much dirt to elevate it.
You still would, because your grade that you're establishing is away from the foundation. And so no matter how high you get, you're still having dirt on top of your thing, and then you have to get positive drainage away from the home. So
That's right.
it's 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other, as far as grading is concerned.
Do you see a fishbowl situation or excess soil piling up near a root collar on any other trees in the vicinity here? Certainly that water oak on the right. That's probably gonna end up going anyhow.
Which
Yeah.
one?
The one of the
14
two,
inch?
yes, the one of the two that were proposed by staff. That's-
The natural drainage over there already goes to kind of the property line and out. There's a not an established swale, but enough of a drainage swale that we feel like the drainage is going to drop to that property line and then out to the curb.
How about that, there's an X there, that's going away, the first exit from the street. That's
pine.
already crossed out, that's already gone. How about that big oak or pine at the corner?
Up at the front left?
Yes,
Yeah, that's totally fine.
you don't.
We're
think
going
that'll
to keep
be-
all the drainage to the driveway.
Okay. All right, well, we've spoken much about this.
That horse has been dead.
Right.
This poor horse has been dead.
I wouldn't quite say that, but is there any other comments to follow up on this discussion? If not, could I have a motion?
Yeah, with reluctance
I'll make the motion.
and sadness, I move to grant removal of the Johnny Chestnut.
And I'll second it. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for looking out for the trees. It appears that's going on in a lot next to you and hopefully everything works out for these as well.
Yes, sir.
I know the
Thank
big pine trees in the back will be okay. All right, thank
They'll
you.
be fine.
Yeah, and those are good looking pines.
Yeah, and you saw that there's a whole vineyard back.
Yes,
Great. It's be awesome.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was tough.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to change it. Just,
Good for
I
you.
can't
That's
see it
good.
surviving.
I
what we
voted
do.
against it. I had to do it. I couldn't help it.
That's all right. Good for you. I'm glad.
Is there anything else we wish to discuss? Can I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those that want to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned. Okay.
Thank you. That was extremely interesting.
Glad you could.
It was, it was great.
We get tough ones.
And we try to be